how would you say the society treats journalists? Do they treat them as badly as the government? Do they blame them for the government's woes? Do they drag them when they should be dragging the government?
I think that there is a problem. I keep saying that there's an internal problem. Okay. Because if you don't pay journalists well, then they are susceptible to being used.
Somebody will pay them.
Somebody will pay them. You go for an event and the brown envelope thing pops up. And this is, if you, yeah, that's the truth. A journalist that receives 30,000 naira a month will not go for an event and reject a brown envelope.
Of maybe 30,000.
Yes, and you and I know that some of these brown envelopes are very tempting. In fact, I've been to occasions where the brown envelope is in dollars. and we're not talking about $100 or $200. We're talking about 1,000. I have a friend of mine from Al Jazeera that went to interview a popular Nigerian governor. And when she was leaving,
thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming was almost $50,000.
But is that inducement?
and then
thank you for. Al Jazeera is fine now. Al Jazeera is fine.
No, probably because And then she said, "No, sir, I don't." I said, "No. This is a culture in Nigeria. This is how we receive people. Take it." And then her team members that were Nigerians, I said, "Madam, you have to take this money. If you are not going to take it,
we take it." But media organizations like that, they have a caveat. You shouldn't take anything.
No, she refused. She rejected it.
You shouldn't take anything from.
What she wouldn't tell me was the fact that maybe the team members went to take, but she ended the story there. But it says a lot that if we want to actually, have absolute control of our storyline of the media, then it goes down a lot to how journalists are being treated in the newsroom. And how, but then it's the kind of country where we found ourselves. What are the incentives for journalists? Where are you travel outside, you see grants, you see organizations, they are giving money to journalists to do stories. You do your story deck, and then you access your funding and do your story. So the burden is not entirely on the news house to even pay the journalists, to even help them grow. There are avenues. I think that on a day like this, we should advocate that banks and corporate organizations, in order to protect journalists, because journalists do a lot of work for them, to propagate, to share some of their information and make sure that they continue to remain relevant as brands, should come up with platforms that can enable Nigerian journalists access funds within the country to do good stories, whether investigative stories, whether expository stories, any kind of story to help to, make them a bit independent in terms of how they're able to share their stories and propagate them.
All right. We get calls sometimes. Investigative journalism, they're not doing it anymore in this country. Do you believe that? Would you agree with that assertion?
It's almost non-existent. There are just few platforms that have taken it seriously. It's risky in our country to be an investigative journalist because we don't have protection. I was attacked in 2019. I still have the marks all over me. A crime syndicate. What's that there? A border smuggling syndicate tracked me to Nigeria and almost killed me.
From outside?
Yes. Not just they were not Nigerians, but they had a Nigerian collaboration too, because I had investigated the Semekrake border. In fact, not just the Semekrake border, but the whole flank of the Lagos to Accra route of the ECOWAS border. And the ECOWAS had spent close to 19 million euros to build a border, and they had refused to open the border because the illegal routes aspect of it was giving them more money to the custom and the gendarmes. And so I felt it was bad. I had used the route a couple of times and I decided to investigate it. So we planted, I wouldn't want to say here, but at the end of the day, the border was opened and we mentioned names and they went down, and somehow
they came for you.
They came for me, and I was lucky. I mean, it was just God.
Do you think that, okay, so you've mentioned there's no protection, right?
No protection.
And funding.
Yes, no funding too. My story was funded by an international organization.
Yeah, and see where it got you.
Yeah.